alone. Through a storm, hold your head up high. Ooh, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a love.
All right, so we are back, and I want to apologize for that short break. But again, I am filling in for the leader of the opposition this morning. During the latter part of the program, he will obviously enter the studio and be here and interact with you. But as I was saying before we took the short break, that I know many of you throughout the length and breadth of St. Vincent and the Grenadines are looking at either the notice from VINLEC or even your electricity bill, especially from even last month. And you will see a significant increase on your bill. And you may be asking the question, well, how is this the case, especially in light of what the Prime Minister or the government said in May? And, well, I remember very well that meeting not meeting, but more or less announcement outside downstairs the financial complex. And the Prime Minister then spoke about a cap in terms of fuel price, and he talked about 3 months intervention and subsidy. And he also spoke on the VINLEC side of things that beyond 77 cents, once the fuel surcharge reaches 77 cents and beyond, that VINLEC will therefore cover entirely the surcharge. So you may be asking that question, well, what happened to the interventions? But this is the reality when words do not meet action per se. And therefore it leaves you to wonder. I know because of the war, the ongoing war in the Middle East between the United States, Israel, and Iran, that has impacted the cost of fuel globally. And we've been there many times before. I mean, it's nothing new. Persons can recall the Russian-Ukraine war. Persons can recall the pandemic, different shocks globally that will affect either the cost of goods or the cost of fuel. And the Unity Labour Party then in government made various interventions. You had interventions for vulnerable persons, where you had direct income support, and you also had interventions at the pump for those of you who go and fill up your gas tank at the pump. And therefore you had a broad-based support and intervention. So you had income support, you had subsidy on things like cement, you also had in terms of flour, you also had food boxes, you had from the agricultural side the distribution of seedlings, you had distribution of chicks, even distribution of turkey and the like. So you had different forms of interventions because of the impact of what was happening abroad. But what we have now is minuscule, very small, very insignificant. And therefore you're asking yourself, well, whether this is the change that you wanted. You're asking yourself, well, what happened to the 3 months intervention by the government? You're asking yourself, well, what happened to this cap in fuel surcharge? And today it is July, the 8th month since the NDP is in office. And you're not hearing anything else. You know, Dr. Gonzalez called for direct intervention for our omnibus operators. We have to be real with ourselves. Look, it is quite possible. It is quite possible that we will hear of another increase at the pump. It is quite possible, given all that is happening. And no one is certain how much longer the omnibus operators can absorb that cost. And I know many of you are already saying, well, the van's going off the road early. Or that the vans are now operating where less trips. And obviously that will happen because on their side of things, they are trying to cut down on the costs. So these are pertinent questions. And you're not hearing anything on the government side as to what other interventions that will take place. You're not hearing any intervention pertaining to the most vulnerable of families in our society. Nothing. Because you and I know that due to the rising cost of goods, that things are more expensive. And then you are also hearing that money isn't circulating as it used to before. Which is true. Because there is nothing significant that is happening in the economy. So therefore, there is need for significant intervention for the most vulnerable of our citizens in society. And we have back to school around the corner. But the government is silent. The government is silent. And therefore, you have to ask yourself, and I know persons are already asking themselves if this really and truly is the change that some of them voted for. Because I've heard for myself where persons say, well, you know, under the Unity Labour Party government, X, Y, and Z used to happen. At least they knew. And there was constant communication as to what will happen and what the government will do.
Right.
But what is happening now is high uncertainty. None of you can say what will happen, what interventions will happen next week or next month, or what the government will do. I know persons have even asked me whether road walk will be happening. It's silence. But there is need for increased interventions because you and I do not know when this war will end. And the way things are going, it is quite possible that this war will go into next year. That is very possible. But one of the things I actually like about what some persons are saying, because before, we used to usually hear that the increased cost of goods or increased cost of fuel was Dr. Gonzalez's fault. Well, I'm happy to see that some of those persons have turned around now and recognize that the shocks globally are affecting the cost of goods and services here. Imported inflation. Nonetheless, government has certain levers that it can use to cushion the impact on we the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as happened under the previous government, whether it may be through customs, whether it may be through direct support and intervention with income support initiatives and love box. I saw someone this morning said they could long for a love box. Well, I don't think that you will be seeing one, but I understand where you're coming from, because we've distributed many of those love boxes, which I remember you had about 50 pounds of produce, whether it may be banana ground provision, you even had cornmeal and other things, you had oil and even canned items in them. I know that because persons are crying out for the rising cost of goods. And I often say this: what better time than now for this government to show that it means what it says and deliver upon promises made to you, the people? Because it's this very government that said they will cap fuel surcharge. I remember when the NDP was in opposition, they talked a lot about fuel surcharge. And they told you, the people, that if you elect them, they will cap fuel surcharge. Not even in times like these, but actually have a policy to cap it. So what happened now? There is the same government that said that they will reduce VAT, and that they have about 100 items to be zero rated on VAT. Well, the people saying the cost of goods increasing. What happened to that? Those promises fall by the wayside? Was it just, as a minister said, a marketing strategy? That is where we reach. What happened to that? Now is actually a very good time to deliver on those promises, to cushion the effects that you are feeling. But alas, none of that is happening. Instead, what has happened is that the government saw it fit to spend $135,000 to put a flag, St. Vincent flag, on an airline, and also some words to the nose of the airline. And on top of that, to make matters worse, the service continues to be poor, to the extent where one of our ambassadors, cultural ambassadors, recently spoke out about the horrible service. As a matter of fact, the day after that took place, that ceremony took place. And I'm quite sure that you are saying that money could have been better spent on other things. Maybe to creatives out there who are good in making short reels to further promote St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Maybe to place on more cabs abroad, whether in the United Kingdom or the USA, to attract more visitors to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Maybe towards some support intervention, production support. But not on an airline, especially at this time, where you are already saying that things are tight. No, that should not have been priority. Priority right now is focusing on how you are going to help the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines cushion the effects of rising cost of living as a result of the war. How you are going to help the ordinary man and woman out there in preparing their child for back to school.
Yep.
That's where the priority is. But I guess for them, these things don't really matter. They don't matter. And all you're getting is talk and talk and talk. And you have to ask yourself whether this really is the change that you wanted. And many persons are asking that. There are persons who also want to know who is the actual leader of the country. I saw something, and I'll pull it up. Where the Minister of Social Mobilization wrote a piece on, and it was carried by St. Vincent Times, 23rd of July, where she said, and this is Honorable Lavon Velox Gibson, where she said, new era of jobs and opportunities for St. Vincent and Grenadines. I really wanted to know whether which St. Vincent and Grenadines she was talking about, because as far as I know, and as far as you know, right now, there is no uptick in jobs. You and I know that. And she wrote this based on the idea of a National Development Bank, and I know they had consultation started in Southern Grenadines. The very National Development Bank, which the IMF, who they are also seeking some advice from, has said that it is not a good idea, given other examples in the region where this institution is facing financial issues. So she said that earlier this year, the Prime Minister announced plans to introduce a National Development Bank. And she went on to say that reintroducing the National Development Bank will address gaps in access to development financing in order to provide support to sectors and projects that will help national development. And she talked about blue economy, agriculture, tourism, and new economy. Then she went on to say, the government is also aware that international partners such as the IMF and others express concern about the management of a development bank and the risk of it becoming a financial burden. But here the part that really shocked me, although it shouldn't, is where she said that opportunities for Vincentians. She said the previous administration was inactive and neglected the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She said it did not see the great ideas of our country. Our country has all belief in Vincentians to deliver. Instead, providing handouts which led to economic mismanagement and saw a downgrade of our country's Moody's rating and vast levels of unemployment. Now, this is the dishonesty that we talk about. This is the dishonesty that we talk about. So she said, this is the minister, Lavon Velox Gibson, she said, the previous administration, which was ULP, was inactive and neglected the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we did not believe in Vincentians, and instead we provided handouts. Now, first of all, the very things that this government want to do with the National Development Bank was already happening under the previous government. And we look at some examples. For instance, small business support. This government has taken the direction to totally abandon and cut out Prime, which is promoting youth entrepreneurship. The very Prime that established many small businesses in the country, the very Prime that established even in our constituency right now, in Glen, what we call Prime shops, where you can go up to this morning and see the many young persons where they have barbershop, salon, and the like, or even graphics, occupying those shops right in Glen area. You know what I'm telling you? The minister said that the previous administration was inactive and neglected the people, and did not see the great ideas of our country and believe in Vincentians to deliver, and therefore we only give out handouts. But Prime is a perfect example of how you actually give a hand up to help young persons and other persons realize their dreams, goal, and aspiration in being their own business owner, and towards the creation of wealth, and also provide jobs. Because each business may employ 1, 2, or 3 persons, a small business, or even more. And this is how you take these innuendos apart, these lies apart, simply by using these examples. There's another one, on-site program, which is offering national internship opportunity to young persons. And this was primarily geared on a partnership between the state and private sector, where you attach young persons to businesses where they get training and experience, with the objective that at the end, and it was for 6 months, that at the end of their 6 months training, that they will be employed. And that is why I know how it usually used to happen. Usually by January, February, through the Ministry of Finance, you will have invitations to businesses out there to apply. And these businesses will say, well, you know, we may have a vacancy, or we may need someone to train under us. We are interested, and therefore they will sign up for it. And because of that, on the state end, they will recognize the different gaps or skills that these businesses will need, or jobs to fill. And therefore, you place the different trainees accordingly based on what the business demands. And it was a success program, because at the end of it, they had close to 80% of the trainees under this program being employed. That's a fact. Yep. So I was taken aback when I realized that the current government totally squashed that program. Because if you are telling me, and this is something that the NDP also ran on, if you are telling me that you are interested in training young people, in empowering young people, in finding employment for young people, then you will not get rid of such a program. Especially a program that was successful. You would not. Up to today, this government has not established or created an alternative program. Up to today, going 9 months in office, all the things that they told you about that was wrong about the Unity Labour Party government, up to today, they have not. The program, the two programs that exist currently is set, and I can tell you this, that the enrollment is less, and yes, program. Those are the only two. Prime gone, on-site gone. And these programs empower the young people. Empower the young people. And you have to ask yourself, well, why is it you cut these programs? Because on-site was doing well. I've known young persons who actually got their first job because of on-site. And I will tell you this, on-site, the placement of the young person in the different job position is not about pull string, no. Because no politician couldn't call up the business and say, oh, well, put such and such, Mary, John, or whoever. The business will realize that at the end of the 6 months, there's an evaluation of the person who was trained. And once they're exceptional, the business will say, well, I'm going to keep this person on. I'll employ this person. And I've known persons who have been employed because of that. So why would you cut such a program and then turn around to say that the Unity Labour Party government, the previous administration, neglected people? Like, for real? And you cut these two programs without a replacement? The other thing is, they push the development bank instead of prime. They didn't say, well, we will reconfigure prime. No system is perfect. No institution is perfect. But they didn't even give it that thought. They didn't say, we will reconfigure or restructure prime. No. Which provided grant financing to young people. And I want you to follow me through on this. Because you and I know there are persons who are already, even as young as 16, 15, who have business ideas, you know. Yes. And you and I know that these young persons, some of them, they come from poor families. Some of these families, they don't even have a deed in the name. Now tell me, how can you expect that a young person, 18, 19, 20, 21 years, just getting their feet wet in the real world? They ain't even experienced the real world yet, but they have good business ideas. To apply for a loan and be able, while their business is now starting, it ain't even reach nowhere yet, to be able to also service that loan when the business is even breaking even. How can you expect that? On a serious level, how can we expect that? Because you and I know it takes quite a while, depending on the nature of the business, even up to 2 years to even break even. So you expect that these new businesses by the young persons not breaking even, not making a profit, for them to be able to either repay interest or both interest and principal for this loan that you want them to take to the National Development Bank? Like, seriously? And you think that is a better route than offering a grant financing? Like, seriously? Because now that young person will have to find another way to help service that loan that they will take, that you want them to take from the development bank to start up a business. So, I have no doubt that the real beneficiaries of such a thing will be existing businesses that are either doing well or breaking even to apply, and not necessarily young persons who want to start up something for themselves because of the headache that they will have on a constant monthly basis to service the very loan, even though the business ain't take off yet. And that is what made Prime so exceptional. Like I said, nothing is perfect. Government could have said, well, you know, we will either restructure it so that you have more persons out there. But no, it didn't say that. The government totally squashed Prime altogether. And now trying to sell you, the Vincentian people, this idea of a development bank. The other thing that they push about the development bank is so that farmers and fisher folks can get financing for the business. Well, that is why we have the Farmer Support Company. And as much as I heard the Minister of Agriculture talk about the Farmer Support Company and some of the struggles it's going through, well, you're in government. Again, you can restructure the program, the institution.
Correct.
You can do that. You can restructure it. Because this particular company, its main purpose is geared towards assisting farmers. It is not dealing with anything else, you know. It ain't dealing with automotive and housing. No, it is primarily geared towards assisting farmers and those who want to get into agriculture. And one would think that where you have institutions focused on one particular objective, it will be beneficial more, especially in this case, to the farmers, than where the government is trying to sell the idea of a development bank, and they're going to have different sectors going to the same fund for financing. Because I tell you this, what the government said is that if you want a house, you have to go now to the National Development Bank. That is the idea of it. They say if you want a boat or a boat engine, go to the National Development Bank. They say if you want to start up a business, you will now have to go to the National Development. So all these entities will be competing for the small pool of funds. Now tell me how that is sustainable and will help thousands of persons out there who need concessional financing to help their business. Tell me. Instead of having Prime that is focused towards small business and medium businesses, Farmer Support Company that is primarily focused on assisting farmers. And then we go to the next one, fisher folks. There was something already in place, an arrangement between the state and the credit union in helping fisher folks be able to access financing, concessional financing too, for engine and also for boats, including, by the way, including large fishing vessels. And that is a good arrangement because what it does, it helps to strengthen your credit union. while at the same time meeting the benefit of the fisher folk. And now, the very development bank will be competing with the very credit unions and other local financial institutions. So sometimes you have to ask yourself, what is this government really thinking about? So when the Minister of Social Mobilization go down that road to say that the previous administration neglected Vincentians, the examples are there where the previous administration created institutions for the benefit of the ordinary man and woman, and where you have a lot of these businesses today are operational because of the initiatives and institutions established by the previous government so that they can actualize their dreams and goals. Some persons may not even remember this. There was something called a CASIP program. And that is from that you have digital transformation initiative came out of that. But there was over 22 businesses, and I can call out one or two names. ITFX, I know, was one of them that benefited from this initiative. And other businesses involved in information communication technology. And they're in existence today from that CASIP grant financing program. And that was 2016, thereabout. So when I hear things like this coming from the Minister of Mobilization, you know that they simply have nothing else to talk about. And they want to continue to fool you, the people of St. Vincent and Grenadines, without providing a real alternative on how we create jobs. And I'll simply put this to you, the people listening. Ask yourself, we are now in July. When last have you heard the government talk about creation of jobs? When last have you heard them talk about jobs? What initiatives have you heard this government talk about leading to the creation of jobs? You can't even say. Because they haven't. And now they're trying to push this. And the funny thing about this National Development Bank idea is that the very government said that they will be looking to have the bank financed by proceeds of selling passports. That is the other interesting part. You could imagine that. They want to finance the development bank through something that is right now under threat regionally, and where the European Union has signaled to countries engaging in the program that they need to either end these programs by the middle of 2028 or lose visa-free access to Europe. Basically, these programs is on its last leg. But here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the government is trying to sell us a story that the development bank will be financed by something that is dying. Now tell me, how does that make sense, ladies and gentlemen? How does that make sense? So you do away with prime, you do away with on-site, you do away with the very things that will help young people, create jobs for young people, and now trying to sell the Vincentian public an idea which is already on its last leg, which is selling passport. By saying, oh look, we are going to establish a development bank and it's going to be financed by the selling of passports. How does that make sense? And that is the other interesting part, where silence is the order of the day by this government. Because one would think that for a government whose major flagship policy was the selling of passports, that given what is happening regionally with these citizenship investment schemes and what the European Union has said, that at least the Prime Minister would come out and say something as to whether they plan to go ahead with the program, whether they will seek an alternative to the program. Nothing. Silence is the order of the day. And that is where, leadership is totally lacking. Because with a flagship policy of yours that is under threat, the people of the country deserve to know what is your alternative plan. Because you can't tell me during the election, you tell the people they are going to sell passports to fund a development bank, to build roads, to fund productive sectors. And then here we are now in July, where these programs are under serious threat. Right now in St. Kitts, the Premier of Nevis, Mark Brantley, already spoke that this thing is basically on its way out. These Caribbean leaders are already recognizing that even in St. Lucia. But here in St. Vincent and Grenadines, the very thing that you sold Vincentians, that is now under threat, which, by the way, the former Prime Minister spoke about. And that's why some persons say Dr. Gonzalez can see around corner from matters putting into fuel costs to now selling of passports. All that the former Prime Minister said, we are witnessing. But that flagship policy which you push is now under threat. And you haven't come to tell the people what are you going to do.
Yep.
Whether you are going to continue the program, whether you are seeking an alternative to the program, nothing. But still, you want the people to believe that the development bank will be financed by the selling of passports. Lord have mercy. Huh? This is the government that we have today. Leadership is lacking. We already know vision lacking long time. And that is why nothing is actually happening in this country. So, after the minister already said that, she said this is why we got downgraded by Moody's. Now that is so funny. And the leader of the opposition, former Prime Minister, spoke at length on Moody's report. But I'm going to mention one simple thing here. Well, two things, actually. And this is where even common sense is applied. Between 2014 and last year, Moody's outlook has been grade B, B grade, with stable outlook. 2014 to last year, which includes the period of pandemic, which includes the period of Lasso eruption, which includes the period of Hurricane Beryl. Moody's report has always consistently said grade B rating, stable outlook, despite those shocks. 2014 to last year, up to December last year. Now, what has magically happened from January 2026 to now? You have a change of government. And not only have a change of government, you have a Prime Minister and a Minister of Finance who parade around the world telling you all that we have a debt crisis and we are on the, what he said, we were on the brink of what? a failed state. And make matters worse, a very high deficit to be covered by commercial borrowing. And on top of that, and this was actually mentioned in the Moody's report, that the continued mention of debt swap idea even increased our risk. So don't blame the previous administration, because despite the various shocks that we've experienced between 2014 and last year, we maintained, the Unity Labour Party administration maintained a grade B credit rating, whether B1, B2, B3, and a stable outlook. And the government serviced the debt and kept the economy growing, which is important. So what is different now? What is different now? And it's one simple thing. You know what the Moody's report also said? It's okay if you want to look at the past, fine, it's all right. But we also have to look at the future, which is what Modi also looks at. So they look at whether there will be economic growth, things that will propel the growth, to make sure that the government finance the debt and debt to GDP reduce. Because the minister is now trying to say that, oh, it's because of the previous administration why Modi downgrade the country. You know what Modi also said? Modi said that the outlook, what is the outlook? When people use the word outlook, it means looking forward. What you expect and anticipate ahead, whether it may be 6 months, a year, 2 years, what you expect. The Moody report said that the outlook of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the economy, the outlook is what? Negative. Now, I really and truly, I'm not happy of that. At the end of the day, we are all Vincentians, and we all have to live in this country. There are processes, whichever P you have businesses, you would want the economy to take over and money to circulate, so we can't be happy about that. But the report said that the outlook is negative. You're going to blame Dr. Ralph Gonsalves and the Unity Labour Party for the outlook? You're now in the driver's seat, so the driver got to drive. And if the driver can't drive, well, you know what people say, crap or smoke with pipe. The outlook is negative. So they ain't mention anything about growth. Well, we all know that. Nothing happening in the country.
Say it again, my brother.
Nothing happening in the country.
That's a thing.
It ain't matter what P, whether ULP, NDP, Green Party, DRP, all business owners selling you the same thing. Things slow. We need a report to tell us that. You could feel it. I'll give you an observation. Mornings upon mornings, you see all kind of big truck going all up and down the place, making all kind of noise, carrying aggregated cement and thing, holding up traffic from Leeward side to countryside, tongue side. You seeing that now? You seeing one or two? But you ain't saying that as you used to, because what? Things what? Slow. Things slow. Huh? Things slow. So you can't be surprised when Modi say that the outlook for St. Vincent and the Grenadines is negative. It grim. It looking real grim. Can't be surprised. And you can't blame Comrade Ralph for that. You can't blame Labour Party for that. As a matter of fact, when the Unity Labour Party left office, there was economic growth. That is another fact.
True.
So, who to blame? We have a new driver in the driver's seat. But clearly, in this case, the driver can't drive. The driver can't drive. Driver still using L plate. Trying to see how could turn corner. Trying to learn how to shift the gear. And if you use even a captain analogy, driver don't even know how to circumvent the waves.
True.
So that is the situation we have, ladies and gentlemen. So you've been let bill going up?
True.
Silence. While in opposition, they had a lot to say.
Lot.
They had a lot to say. Oh, government should do this, government should do that. Oh, we should cap the fuel surcharge. Now in government? Mom. Silence.
True.
Nothing for the vulnerable man and woman.
True.
Nothing about, they said they had over 100. You remember that? I remember there was actually an NDP article on that, they have 100 items to be zero rated on the VAT. Well, where the 100 items they now? What are they? Or that was a marketing strategy? Or that was a misprint? Yeah, that's the other famous word. It was an error. Morning, my friend Monica. Monica say, the tail wagging the dog. That's why the plain tail so costly. That is another thing too.
Tail wagging the dog.
He had a lot to say. But now they're in the driver's seat. The driver can't drive, and that is why, I would tell you this. There are people who I didn't even expect to be so vocal against the government at this point, and to the extent where they even calling for Dr. Ralph Gonsalves and Unity Labour Party to be back in office. There's a real saying in truth that you never miss the water till the well run dry, But silence is indeed the code. And it's sad because we all love St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It ain't matter because we're in opposition. We want the best for our country.
Definitely.
And we want that in situations like this, the government still has some levers it can use to assist the vulnerable man and woman out there in these harsh economic realities. I even remember, even with this Vinlex situation, where the previous government, to help offset the bill, actually provided some direct support. I even remember that. But now there's nothing. There's nothing. And that is why I know many of you are asking if this is the change that you really wanted. There are pastors who are already saying that, boy, by now, you will have road workers. You already know when road cleaning program happening. There are pastors who are already saying, boy, by now, you already know how much uniform you're going to be getting so that you know how much money you need to make up to buy the rest.
Yep.
But it seems that silence is the code. Unfortunately. Poor communication. Nothing for the omnibus operators. We don't know when this war will end. Nothing for farmers. I remember when they saw all kind of thing. We had fertilizers like joke from Morocco. Then persons used to even laugh about rice from Taiwan. You know, that's just straight. You never miss the water till you run dry.
Yep.
Lana saying my neighbor and I need a love box. Well, Lana, you ain't getting that for sure. I could tell you that. That ain't happening. Love box. There are persons in Southern Grenadines asking what is happening with the rebuilding process. What is happening? Usually when you seek change, it should be for the better, not for the worse.
True.
And I always say it's like a relationship. You ain't going to leave somebody to get someone worse. That makes sense. And in this situation, the party that had a lot to say in opposition is now silent. Especially pertaining to issues that matters most: cost of living, employment, growing the economy. And you're not hearing the government say anything on that at all. Nothing. You look in tongue, you can feel it, you can see it. Things wrong. I am thankful that we had visitors that came in and helped, chickle around some money. And occupy some of these Airbnb apartments and hotels.
Correct.
And spend some money here and there because things really were tight. And that some rentals get some money, auto rentals. But now these persons have gone. We're back to...
Not even back to square one, back to negative one.
Back to negative.
Way down.
Negative outlook.
Yeah, man. When them continue to ask, let them ask for the next 5 years.
Negative outlook. And the thing is that the government not even trying. And I know some of you may say, well, 40, really and truly we ain't even want them to try. But no, like I said, we all live in St. Vincent and Grenadines. So the next thing the minister talk about is handouts. And that is why, at this point, people who want support can't even get it. I will tell you this. I had an experience when I walk in town. And I found it quite amazing that the office opposite post office, where persons go and get assistance, was partially empty. I found it strange. So of course I inquired. Well, they say no support happening. When I walked down the road, I saw people down Salvation Army even standing outside the road by Salvation Army. I say, well, look at that. I say, look at that. That is where we reach now. Persons can't get assistance because how they view things? Handout. You hear how the minister coined the word? I'll read it again, and I'm talking about Minister Lavon Velox Gibson, where she said that what the previous government did was to focus on handouts. She said the government's reintroduction of Development Bank will provide soft loans for persons who do not own security such as houses or lands to access loans to invest in businesses. Like I tell you, under the previous government, they had distribution of lands, they have building up. You know what this is telling you? No, seriously, let me read this part out again, you know. The minister said, I'm talking about Minister Lavon Velox Gibson, that the government's reintroduction of Development Bank will provide soft loans for persons who do not own security, such as houses or land, to access loans to invest in businesses. So we ain't talking about grants anymore. Also talking about providing loans for housing. I heard the Minister of Finance said that in Parliament. So you know what that means? In simple terms, don't look for this government to build any low-income house for one soul. Whether low-income, middle-income, whatever income, no income, don't look for it. I repeat, change should be for the better. So the minister using the word handouts is basically saying that look, don't look for this government to give you the support that you used to get.
Exactly.
Under Labour. It's the same how they say, what? Santa Claus ain't here anymore. The condescending tone tells you a lot. What they see, what we in the Unity Labour Party saw as assisting you, making sure that you have something to stand on, they look at it as handouts. So don't look for any form of support that you used to get before. As they say, those days gone. And it's the same thing now about the Development Bank. That is why when I saw with the thing at HLDC, with the prefab homes, $118,000 and that, don't look for this government to provide low income and no income and middle income. Those days gone. You better take yourself and go to the Development Bank to purchase land and to build a house. That is very rich. You know, I will tell you this. In our manifesto, Unity Labour Party manifesto, we had an idea. It was two kinds. We recognized that you had a lot of young persons. I'm talking about persons who are 22, 23 upwards, who are young professionals. And obviously, as a young professional, as you start make money, you're thinking about upward mobility, getting your degree, starting a family of your own. And obviously, if you start thinking about getting a family of your own, you are also thinking about getting your own house. So one of the ideas, and it's in our manifesto, we said we will build these condominiums, basically. So it's a slight mover from building what we did at Leyu or Cleverly. These are now condominiums with a lot of space where young persons can get something of their own. NDP never talk about that, you know. And it shows here now in government. They're not interested in that. If you want a house, if you want land, Development Bank for that. So don't look forward to any sort of subsidized housing by the state. They're not interested in that. And I'm not even surprised because it was the NDP that said they are not competing with the private sector. Though, I find it strange that on the same breath, the very development bank is also competing with the credit unions. As a matter of fact, because of the progressive policy of the Unity Labour Party, when we started out with the 100% mortgage through then NCB Bank, that the credit unions also took that on. And you can see, for example, Gecko down at Mountwin, there are persons who own homes in just above the Central Leeward Secondary School because of that housing project and initiative they have. And again, I remind persons that the NDP said this development bank will be financed from the proceeds of selling passport, which is under threat. And the funny thing I see here is that the minister said that the bank will lend money to people without security. I find that quite interesting. She said the introduction of development bank will provide soft loan for persons who do not own security. So, how are you really going to do it? And this is the warning that the IMF said, because with a development bank, you need the money to continue to circulate, to be repaid. And that is the warning the IMF and other institutions give. That it could actually become a financial burden. Because if you say lending to persons who have security, what happens when they can't pay? You can't repossess, you can't possess nothing. You can't recoup no funds. So before it could actually help other people, the money done. Yes. Money done and the development bank gone belly up. But this is what happens when you have lack of vision, lack of ideas, and therefore, yes, Hepburn, Peter's Hope, not Mountain, thanks, above the school. And this is what happens when the driver can't drive. We are now in the 8th month since the NDP is in office. It's 4 more months to make a year. 4 more months. You can't say what the government is looking to do in the next 3-4 months. The Minister of Housing told us a few months ago that they will rehabilitate Little Tokyo starting June. June done pass. Few more days until July finish. Soon enter August. There's no update from the minister. None. You remember when Dr. Gonzalez told them that the school down at Kittles, it will take a while to fully rebuild. They said, nah, we'll get this done in a few weeks' time. Well, it's now in July. I got the last update, thanks to someone, a good comrade, July 19th. It's still a far way to go. What is what happens when experience matters? You know how things going. Johnson say, Velox went through the market last week and asked a couple of vendors how things, and the response scared her. People telling you things wrong. This is the reality. Money not circulating like it used to before. The government said to vote for them so that they can correct the ills under the Unity Labour Party. Well, 8 months in, when you look at the legislative agenda they brought, one of the very first bills they brought is bill to protect themselves. And you're gonna hear the court sessions are this week. Yep. On the citizenship bills. Nothing about crime. They said they had a plan. The plan to address crime was to meet with stakeholders to come up with a plan. Well, it's 8 months in. What happened? The plan ain't planning. Just like when the Prime Minister said that they established a national cost of living task force, only to hear that the task force didn't even meet within a month's time. You can imagine that you establish a task force and it even meet in a month's time. And still, despite that task force being established, people today asking, well, where's the intervention to help me with my light bill and the cost of goods? Nothing. Silence. There are apostles in Green Hill who tell you that yes, they had potholes under the previous government, but they said they had an active road patching program. Now the people up in Green Hill don't even know whether that is a road.
Not there alone. Many other places.
And there are many other places. Because these are the things that the NDP ran on and said to vote for them, but maybe it's the marketing was marketing. You know? That's what the minister said when he went on Hot 97. You know, it was a marketing thing, no man. Marketing strategy. A marketing pitch. That's what he said. It was a marketing pitch. But now we are here. There are many students who are wondering about scholarships. I saw a notice. And I couldn't believe it. I don't know how many of you saw it. Where the government put out a notice saying, and I'll read it out to you now. And it says applications are now invited to suitably qualified Vincentian nationals for 1 year full scholarships offered by the government to various campuses of UWI. Hear this part now. The scholarship covers 1 year of study, either the final year of an undergraduate or graduate degree. So the only funding 1 year. Now, I've been seeing some of these notices. And what it indicates to me, and I could tell you this now, do not look for the government to offer the amount of scholarships that the previous government did. As a matter of fact, they even narrowed it further by saying that the scholarships will cover certain programs: statistics, demography, data science, econ, maths, geographic information system, IT, or computer science. So certain programs, and it only covers 1 year. So for example, a bachelor's degree is a 3-year program. It only covers 1 year, and they said what? The final, either is the final year of that undergraduate program, which would be the last year. I want to remind persons here now, the previous government provided 3,000 tuition scholarships. And they had over 60 national scholarships and exhibition bursaries. I know many young persons are asking and worrying whether they will be successful this year. To the extent where some are exploring alternatives. You see, and the studies show it, even IMF study, that the more qualifications you achieve is the more likely you will be employed. Now, if you are talking about empowering young people, jobs for young people, you will make sure that persons who want to pursue higher learning, that they have the opportunity to do so with whatever assistance can be provided to them. You don't want to reach a case where a child, because of whatever economic background or struggles, cannot realize their goals and dreams in furthering the studies. As a matter of fact, I will tell you this also, based on UNICEF study, which they did on disadvantaged student loan. UNICEF said that initiative was also an initiative to fight against poverty, because what they recognize as well is that a lot of the recipients, and based on the income level it targeted, are persons who either of low income or who also experience poverty or the close to poverty. So it was a measure as well in the fight against the eradication of poverty. Because if you have a young man or a young woman from a poor household, they achieve the bachelor's or the master's, they get a job, maybe the first person in the home to actually get a stable job. This person in turn will help that family. The income of the household also increases. Yep. And if they have siblings, they too will be able to guide that sibling to also either do like them or do better than them. So that's the fight against poverty. But from what I see here now, with this government, I'm telling you, don't expect them to provide as much scholarships as the previous government did. Don't expect it. And the other reason I will tell you that, I remember the Prime Minister, while in opposition, said the focus has to move away from degrees to skills. Now, there's no issue in pushing skills, because under the previous government, we did both, and there were different programs. From Sky, On-site was a training program. You had the different technical institutes, to the extent where at Camden Park Technical Institute, you had equipment purchased to help with automotive repair, and I know they do alignment there as well. Same thing with the one at Annesville. So we push a lot of skills. But you also have to remember those who want to advance the studies abroad. So it's not pushing one and ignore the other. You need a balance. But I don't think this government fully grasped that. But I really am waiting to see the government's response to the significant demands for scholarships. Because young people, they already know what they want to do. They are telling you what they want to do. And you cannot let them down. You can't let them down. You can't have any sort of regress when it comes to education. Because with education, you have a solid foundation. And that is why this song said, children go to school and learn well. Because if you don't, your life will be real hell. So, these are the things we need to hear from the government, but you're not hearing anything. What are you hearing from the government is a continued fixation on Dr. Ralph Gonsalves. That is what you get from the government, a continued fixation on Dr. Ralph Gonsalves. And what is so funny, I heard the junior minister in education, she said, and this is Minister King, that Dr. Gonsalves is looking for relevance. Now, I don't know whether a man who, by the way, the president of Ghana has already extended an invitation for him to serve on the International Reparations Council, Global Reparations Council. If a man like that is looking for relevance. There are many persons who want to have an audience with Dr. Gonsalves. That is a man who looking for relevance. Say whatever you want to say. Dr. Gonsalves, even before he became Prime Minister, was a well-known lecturer and a Caribbean man. He became Prime Minister. That expanded globally. He's now in opposition. You think they're going to fall by the wayside? Like, seriously? You think they're going to fall by the wayside? You've already built a rapport and relationship with many leaders around the world, diplomats. You think because he's in opposition that will what? Fall by the wayside? It's not his fault that nobody really looking to your leader for anything. Maybe to them he have much to offer.
He has nothing to offer.
It's not Dr. Gonsalves' fault. And that is why when I see some of them say, why he don't just go in a corner, why he don't just go focus on his family and thing. Because they realize that there's no shine coming from the Prime Minister. There's no traction there. So for them, and this has always been the NDP, is not that they would want to brighten their light. The only how their light can be bright is if someone else owns them. You know? So that is how they think. But you can't take that away from Dr. Gonsalves. You just have to talk to the Prime Minister, and I don't know. I remember the Prime Minister stood up at a forum among development partners, World Bank and the like, and he said, "What? It is a daunting experience." I was like, "What? You one of the first things come out of your mouth at a session where you are speaking among development partners is to say that it is a daunting experience? Really? You know what it means to be daunting? You could look up the word. Like, seriously? So, don't be vexed with Dr. Gonsalves. Maybe tell your leader to up his game. Do something. But Dr. Gonsalves will remain the person he is. He's a known people person. And make it worse now, he has a bit more time on his hands. You will expect him to be out and about. He's an intelligent man. He was a lecturer. He's a professor. He has pushed a lot of regional issues, including reparations. And you will expect persons regionally and around the globe to call on him on matters that he pushed, including reparatory justice.
Correct.
So, don't be vexed with him. Your leader, who happens to also be our Prime Minister, has no conviction. And there is something about Dr. Fred. He has no conviction whatsoever. No one can really say personally what Dr. Friday stands for.
Canada.
Well, other than Canada, because that's one thing he's holding on to, that Canadian citizenship. Go higher or low. He will go to the courts. He will go to the courts for it, fight tooth and nail to hold on to that. Persons know the conviction of Dr. Gonzalez, what he stands for. And other persons within the Unity Labour Party. But we are yet to hear the Prime Minister on salient issues, including addressing cost of living, including assistance to persons because back to school, vulnerable persons in our society who need the help, and also the rising cost of energy. And I am hopeful that the government will continue to look at geothermal and other renewable forms of energy. Because again, this war, in my view, will linger on into next year. You don't know how long this will go on, and we will be feeling the impact. And the onus is on the government to come up with a plan, a solid plan, as to how it helps to cushion the effects, and also an alternative to citizenship by investment. At least you need to let the people know, given what is happening now, where do we go from here? Because you told the people that citizenship by investment scheme will fund the bank and do X, Y, and Z and fund this and fund that and do roads and healthcare and all of that. And now it is in quagmire. You need to let the people know what next. Will you continue to pursue it? Is it on the agenda? Or what's the alternative? But we are yet to hear from the Prime Minister on that. There's another thing that I want to focus on today. Is where the government said a lot while in opposition. Matters of crime. But now in government, nothing. Anyone can check this out. I recall when you had the shooting up at cruise ship berth. I think the Prime Minister was out of state then. The day after, there was a press conference by the Deputy Prime Minister then, Mr. Montgomery Daniel. And flanking him was the head of the police force. I recall that very well. Reassuring the nation. But this government, in front the police station, the headquarters of the police, and you haven't heard from the Minister of National Security, or even the Prime Minister, for a matter of fact, and how do we move forward? Remember, you had a lot to say in opposition. You put up all kind of billboards, all sort of things. But now, you're in the driver's seat. You gotta drive. And I really don't want to hear of another record broken this year. But where we are now in the middle of the year, closing to 30, it may well be possible But we still have time to try and not have another record. But the silence is deafening. Like I said, a lot to say in opposition, but now we're in the driver's seat. Total different thing. Now we're in the driver's seat. Total different thing. The farmers out there cried out. They need assistance. The cost of inputs gone up. What is the Minister of Agriculture doing? And I ain't talking about snail. I'm talking about assisting with inputs. What is the Minister of Agriculture saying? You know, thankfully, because of the previous government's intervention with chicks, broilers, and in particular layers in this case, you can buy a dozen egg now, I think, for $11, sometimes $10. Now, I am not sure how longer that will go. Well, obviously, we know during Christmas season it will, because of the demand and the season, it will increase a bit. But you don't know whether that will continue into next year, because many persons got these chicks layers because of the previous government. And the cost of feed increase. These are the things that the government needs to focus on, but they're not focusing on these things. Instead, they focus on putting a flag on the war cell line. They're focusing on what Dr. Gonzalez do. They're focusing on some things that makes you wonder. They're repairing of schools. Back to school. You're not hearing anything about the possibility of getting more flights. You know, I heard the Minister of Tourism, big, he talk about launch 100 projects. Well, between you and I, this was the 100 projects thing. Every year, the Ministry of Tourism would identify tourism sites for repair. I mean, that's what this is about, you know. It's not anything about new tourism site, just usual repair. Where are we? Where are we on that? They used to say that, oh look, never see come see, we having water salute for new international flights. We had a water salute recently.
Exactly.
They had a water salute recently. Again, for what purposes the war sail line. These are the things we need to hear from the government. I know some persons fret because recently it was Saturday gone. They said the port had a fun day. And I know some businesses were saying, you know, that the port could have a fun day. We have August 1st coming. Why you need to close the port operations when businesses need the stuff out of the port? These are the things that you hear persons talking about that the government need to look at, but you're not hearing them. Here, you reach. But I now received the information that the Comrade is here. So obviously I will I'll vacate this seat and go into the other seat.
But when it comes to just restart another one.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm told when he comes in, we could just continue it. Or
Fine.
okay, all right. We'll deal with the technical stuff. But clearly, there are a lot of things that the government need to focus on that they're clearly not prioritizing. They don't care about how cost of living is affected. They don't care about how much you're looking for land and home ownership. They don't care about none of those things. Those things are on the back burner. What they care about, you're hearing nothing about CBI. You don't know whether they want to continue. Any alternative? None of those things. But clearly, this is our country and these are the issues we need to focus and speak out loudly on. Because if we don't do that, they will continue down this road and before you know it, our country would be not. Modi already said the outlook is negative. You know what negative mean? Usually the Africans, you start at 0 and go up 1. Below 0 is negative. Negative outlook. Meaning nothing is happening. The outlook is bleak. Is brown. And therefore the government need to find a way to address that. So the comrade is here. And we'll take a short break and then of course he'll chip in and continue the program.
Okay. Will you walk through a storm? Hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet sea of a song of a love. Walk on to the wind, walk on to the rain, through your dreams be toast and blow. In your heart, and you'll never
Region and good morning, Comrade.
alone.
In the region, across the world, you'll never walk alone. He will always be with you. Once I have breath in my body, I'm here. Storm, ending storm, wreaking havoc to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
When you
When you walk into the storm,
through a storm, hold
want you
your
to hold your head
head
up high because Labor is here with you.
up high. Ooh,
And don't be afraid of the darkness that the enemy has brought upon this land.
of the dark. At the end
At the end of this storm,
of a storm,
enemy storm,
there's a
there'll be a golden
golden
sky
sky
and you hear
and the sweet silver song
the birds
of a love.
be singing sweet song.
Oh, come
Yes,
to the
it's windy,
wind.
stormy.
Welcome
Walk onto the rain.
to the rain. Through your dreams,
Don't
be
let them back in your
toast and
them all
blind. Yeah. Welcome,
Walk on with faith, open your heart,
welcome.
and faith.
You hold
All in solidarity.
in your heart and your name
Never walk alone.
You never.
Comrades, friends, brothers and sisters, I apologize for being late this morning, and I'll give you the reason shortly. I want to thank Augustine Ferdinand, my dear comrade, and my comrade Bling for holding the fort. I will be with you for about another hour, until 1 o'clock. I have to leave again. I'm in the court this morning, and the matter has been adjourned, in which I'm involved, until 1:30. The constitutional motion, which I brought in favor of, on behalf of a 16-year-old young lady from Connery. And she has been in custody for 4 months, charged with murder. And I'm challenging a particular law under which they're denying her bail. She's not a danger to the public, but I don't want to litigate that matter here at this locale. Deal with that in the court, and we'll see what happens. Don't know if we'll finish today. We'll see. Candyman is overseas. He's in Guyana. That's why he's not here. The judge has allowed us to file a particular application. That application will be in, well, all know so. And the other side has to respond by 1:30 when we appear in court again. But I had to come to the listeners just to indicate that tomorrow the constitutional cases against Friday and Bramble concerning their ineligibility to be candidates and representatives, the cases start tomorrow. You know, they are citizens of Canada by their own volition. Canada is a foreign power, and they're under an allegiance, adherence to Canada. And we are challenging their nomination and their election, and their right to sit as members of parliament. I repeat, for those who said, well, why didn't challenge them earlier? We didn't have the facts of their cases until this time, and the law has evolved, the interpretation of the law, the Constitution has evolved in a particular manner. So that's where we are. I just want to tell you that on Wednesday evening, I would leave for the United Kingdom for 10 working days. I'll be back on the 12th of August, so I have some things to do there. As you know, I'm doing my work nationally. I'm doing my work across the region, and I'm doing my work beyond the region, or globally. I want to say that I want to thank the government of the Republic of Ghana for inviting me to sit as a member of the Global Advisory Council on Reparatory Justice, which is a high-level body of current and former heads of state and government and other eminent personalities to provide strategic leadership and political guidance for the advancement of the global reparatory justice agenda. I was very humbled by the letter of the Foreign Minister, the government of the Republic of Ghana, when he said that in recognition of my distinguished statesmanship, long-standing contribution to Caribbean integration and unwavering advocacy for reparatory justice, it is the honor of the government of Ghana acting on behalf of the African Union to invite me to serve as a member of the Global Advisory Council on Reparatory Justice. And the letter went on to say your leadership and experience would make an invaluable contribution to the work of the Council and help strengthen the political leadership, strategic direction, and international partnerships required to advance the implementation of the resolution for reparations for native genocide and the enslavement of African bodies. And I've indicated my acceptance of the invitation of the government of Ghana. I want to thank my dear friend, the President of Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama, for his letter also to me. I don't want to take up the time to read anything from it, but it's a beautiful letter which had been sent also to me. Now, there are a number of issues for us to talk about, but I think one which will take up some time, and I want to get to it promptly. The matter of the likely increase this week. I want the people of St. Vincent and Grenadines to know that Friday has in store for you an Emancipation Day gift. They're going to increase the price of gasoline, the price of diesel, the price of low sulfur diesel. I want to say this because I'm announcing it here that they're going to increase it. I hope they prove me wrong and don't increase it. Because I talk about it, they may say, well, how Ralph could go out and talk about this. But I know it's coming. Whether it's coming this week or it's coming on Monday, the last two increases, big increases, one was done on the 29th of May, the other one on the 29th of June, and I'm expecting the other one on about the 29th of July. They might delay it a day or two, but it's coming. And if they change their mind because I'm talking about it, well, I would have done some good for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, you may recall that within a week of the assault by the United States of America and Israel on Iran, I came on this radio station and this very program and told you that this war is going to last long, and the price of gas, I'm predicting that by June, July, it will approximate $20 a gallon and go beyond it. Go back and listen to what I said. Go back and see the reports. Of course, when I said it, and I said diesel and low sulfur diesel will come up behind very quickly. I'm coming just now to the matter of the fuel surcharge at Vinlec. But I want to deal with gas, gasoline, diesel, and low sulfur diesel. Diesel is the one which is used mainly by the minibuses. 90% of them use diesel. Now, when Iran was attacked on the 28th of February, what was the price per barrel of crude oil, unrefined oil, crude oil? That's not the one which you use at the pump. That had to go to a refinery. Just in case you're asking how much is a barrel, and you can do all the calculations yourself. We use, how many gallons? We use imperial gallons in St. Vincent and Grenadines. Approximately 35 imperial gallons equal 1 barrel of oil. 34.972 imperial gallons. Call it 35 for ease of reference. And it was American gallons is 42 American gallons. Because American gallons less than imperial gallons. It's important that the benchmarks and the framework be put so that intelligent people, who is the overwhelming majority of our people, can check things out, do the arithmetic, follow what is happening. Now, on the 27th of February, the day before the assault, two international benchmark prices. The Brent crude was at US $72 per barrel. And West Texas International, Brent crude tends to be the measurement across Europe and the rest of the world. West Texas International tend to be in the US system. There was $67.02 US per barrel. What was the situation this morning? The 27th of July. The Brent crude was $91 US per barrel, and the West Texas International benchmark price was US $84. Now, it was a little higher a few days ago, but it had gone up to 100 with the Brent crude, but it had come down back a little, dropped just over 5%, because there's a pause by the United States of America and Iran in the bombings. So you have it going as a yo-yo. But I want to point out that these futures prices don't take account of the specific spot prices, which invariably are higher. No. So if you do the math between what it was before the 27th, before the 28th, and do it today, you will see it's about 25, 26 percentage points increase. And there is no end in sight. That's the crude oil. But you have to take account of the refined oil. So there's a cost of refining it. And then you have to transport it. You have to insure it. You have to put the various charges. You have to put wholesale margin. You have to put retail margin before it gets you down to the pump. That's why 1 week after the assault upon Iran, I said the Director General of Finance and Planning must be asked by the government to come on radio and explain all the issues surrounding how the price build out is, and to explain the bonus-malus system. First of all, how we buy, at what level we set the price for oil, because it's a controlled item. And what Sol and Ruby sell us, we have a benchmark price, which basically is Shell West. The benchmark price, if it goes up or down, whatever they sell you at, I'm talking about rubies or sol, you will either take a loss on it or you might have a gain. If we have a loss, if there's a loss on it to the companies, we have to pay the companies. If there's a gain, they will owe us money because we use the benchmark price. I just want to explain how it is. And there's a price build out. No. You need to understand this. And I asked that this be explained. I explained this already, you know. When I was Prime Minister more than one time. And I took pains to do it. Every time we have a problem. Like we had in 2008, 2009. And we had in 2022. After the February attack by Russia upon Ukraine. And I've been on this subject over and over again. And within 1 week of February the 28th, I outlined to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines that ways in which the government has to act. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves with real pain. I say, for instance, you have to do the analysis looking at your finances to see how much, what is the outside limit you could afford as a subsidy. And who you will give the subsidy to, as we did it to the minibus men. And how you're going to further protect poorer folks because the cost of living is going to rise. And I outline all the measures which we took and other measures which the circumstances warranted. I say, okay, and you have to start to do this thing urgently. Remember, it's February the 28th. The attack took place on Iran. The government didn't do anything for March. They didn't do anything for April. The first time they addressed the question was on May the 29th. 3 months after. Friday was sleeping at the wheel. I told you all in the election campaign. Many of you didn't believe me when I tell you. The man ain't nimble enough to do this job. I tell you he's weak. I tell you he's not creative. I say, by the time he take to do anything, I told you also there was laziness. I explained everything to you because I watched him from 2001 when he was elected in the Northern Grenadines. And I watched him as leader of the opposition. Watch him as leader of the NDP. I explained it to you, you know. You can't say I didn't do it. But you did what you had to do, what you think you had to do. You know, old people say you make your bed, you lie down in it. But it ain't as simple as that. I had to keep reminding you about not so much as to what you did, but if you recognize that you made an error, we got to correct that error at the earliest possible opportunity. But I have to explain the issues to you because that is part of my job as the parliamentary representative for North Central Windward, as the leader of the opposition, and as political leader of the Unity Labour Party. Good. What was the price? Because sometimes people forget, you know. What was the price of gasoline and diesel and low sulfur diesel between February the 28th and May the 29th? That is at the time when America and Israel attacked Iran. The price per gallon of gasoline was $13.22. I told you within a week that by the time we reach July, don't be surprised if you reach 20 or beyond. I told you that. But I remind you what it was then. $13.22 per gallon. for the gasoline. Diesel was $12.56 per gallon. Low sulfur diesel was $12.93 per gallon. Then, on June the 29th, right up to today, it increased, the gasoline increased to $18.31 per gallon. Diesel to $17.53 per gallon. And low sulfur diesel to $17.40 a gallon. The two increases on May the 29th and June the 29th. $5.09 increase for gasoline. $4.97, almost $5 for diesel. And $4.47, almost $4.50 for low sulfur diesel. Now, I also told you that if the government didn't tell you they had to establish a benchmark, how much they could afford as a subsidy, and make the subsidy time bound. I used to say, do it for a certain period and then you review it. I also made the point that it is better to do smaller increases on a timely basis than to wait. Like how they wait 3 months, you have a big increase. And when you got the big increase on May the 29th, I say within a month's time, they're going to give you another increase. Another big one. And this weekend, before this week is out, they have another one for you. I said one of the reasons you're going to do it incrementally from early is that you will not shock the system with the consumer. And you will be able to make it the cushion easier for them. But importantly too, you will save the amount of money which you will owe Sol and Rubis. Now, at the end of April, you owed the oil companies $12 million, the government. It would have been $18.6 million, but for the fact that by the end of December last year, Rubis owed the government $6.6 million. Because the benchmark was in favor of us in the bonus. But since February, you've been having the malus, the bad, not the good, the bad. For the months of May and June, and this July, the three of them, do not be surprised that you have between them another $12 million. Despite the increases, what you will owe Rubis and Sol. Certainly over $20 million. And I'm being conservative when I say $20 million. When I talk like this, people think that I have information from inside the office of the Prime Minister or inside the Ministry of Finance. No. I run this thing for nearly 25 years. And it's a matter in which I took great interest. So I know it. And I can look at the prices, and globally, I can then look at what happened in the region too, and I can see how the government is handling or not handling the issue properly. No. The increase in St. Vincent between February and now, February and June 29th, continues to now. Gasoline and diesel went up by nearly 40%, and low sulfur diesel by about 35%. And as I say, there's going to be one. Those of you who say Ralph was scaremongering, you have to see around corner if you lead it, you know. I say you'll be at 20 gallons or beyond, $20 a gallon for gasoline or beyond. And diesel and low sulfur diesel will come up behind that. That's what is upon us now. Because the amount of money they owe in Sal especially, but Rubis too by now, it's choking them and choking the country. All what I say, you know, they get reports on it, you know, because the special branch, you see today, this hour I come on, by 4 o'clock this evening, the police special branch already have in a brown envelope, a brown manila envelope, what I say here, put it on Friday desk, put it on Leacock desk. Because they want to know what Ralph is saying. They say they don't want to follow any advice what I give. But I know they can't help not hear what I'm saying. If people at the University of the West Indies want to hear what I'm saying. If the people in Africa want to hear what I'm saying. If the people in England want to hear what I'm saying. You mean to tell me it's Friday and Leacock want to hear what I'm saying? They could pretend otherwise. You know, they pretend they can go on. But I know what's happening in the head. I live rent-free inside of the head. I like a basement inside of the head, to quote the Calypsonian Shadow from Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the responses so far have been highly inadequate by the government. They don't know what to do. Oh, they could have gimmicks, and I'll come to some of them if I have time. They could have gimmicks. Like spending $135,000 on putting on a logo or a flag on a Caribbean inter-Caribbean Airways plane, airlines plane. And the whole cabinet gone out there by the airport. A jamboree. You celebrating spending $135 million on such foolishness on inter-Caribbean? Eh? But I'll come to that just now. And God really don't like ugly. Because as soon as they don't celebrate, a Friday call the plane a flying ambassador of St. Vincent. The next day, they threaten a real life ambassador, Ackley Olton, a cultural ambassador, the filmmaker from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that he can't go up on the plane. And they threaten him to detain him. Inter-Caribbean got power to detain anybody. Only security could do that. Police, airport security in Barbados. So Friday's flying SVG ambassador, Inter-Caribbean, having treated the customers badly in Barbados, or nationals, because Ackley Olton, as a filmmaker, filming it, they want bacchanal. And this is how they treated him. You don't see when I tell you. God don't really like ugly. Because the metaphor gods on Mount Olympus. And our God, our own God. I say, well, wait. No. The pain and suffering of my people is just too much. This thing has to be exposed. And is the next day it was exposed, you know? Friday's flying ambassador for St. Vincent, Inter-Caribbean, treated Vincentians in Barbados at the airport badly and issued threats against, according to the reports, against one of our cultural ambassadors. And it couldn't happen. Look at the day on which it happened on Friday. Friday, it happened on a Friday in Barbados, you know. But we'll come more to that. No. Listen to me. Let me do some back of the envelope thing with gasoline. It was $13.22 a gallon for gasoline before America attacked Iran. It is going to be likely to be more than 2022. Let me just say it might end up $7 more. If you put in gasoline in your minibus, 20 gallons a day from Georgetown to do your 3-4 trips, if you do them. Same thing if you come from Chateau. I'm using 22 miles distance. People can do the math for shorter period, but I'm doing that outside distance. If you have to pay $7 a gallon more, because right now you're paying $5 a gallon more. $5 a gallon more if you're using 20 gallons a day. And I'm being modest with that number. Conservative. That's $100. When they give the new increase, it would be $140. Increase, you know. Not what you're paying for the 20 gallon. The increase. Now the minibus works 20 days a week. Multiply $140 by 20 days a month. That's $2,800. Take out your pencil and paper with me. I'm doing it mental arithmetic. That number is more than the minibus man them would be paying the bank or the credit union for their main capital item, the minibus. Something got to give. They will travel less because people ain't traveling as much. And when that happens, economic activity takes place when a lot of people travel, when a lot of people move. If people stay in Georgetown or Byra or Canary, then I come a tongue. And tongue people ain't moving about. What's going to happen? That's why tongue is like a ghost tongue. Every normal day in the week. When payday. And, teachers will come in. They have a salary day. One teacher may come in, a couple other people come in, they want to do some shopping, they want to pay the bills and so on and so forth. You see a few people. But otherwise, the place dead. The market, people ain't hardly getting anything to sell. Right now, people having problems with the books. You see vendors setting out bookstalls. And I see many takers. I just passed two of them, This morning, when I was going to court, and when I was leaving court at about near 11 o'clock. The court being where the old bankers and business. But Friday had said, on May 29th, that he was going to cap the gasoline, the diesel, and low sulfur diesel at the increase on May 29th. He said we're going to cap that for 3 months. But he didn't cap it. Because within 1 month, in June, he increased it. Because remember this, and I have the number here. On May the 29th, he moved gasoline from 13.22 to 16.92. He said that's why it was going to remain for 3 months. It didn't remain for 3 months. After 1 month, he carried to 18.31. For the diesel, he said the 16.26, which increased from 12.56 on May the 29th to 16.26. He said that's going to stay for 3 months. He lied. He increased it within a month. He carried that to 17.53. And the 16.40 for low sulfur diesel, which increased from 12.93. He said that one was going to remain for 3 months too. Not true. It was increased by $1 to 17.40. Those are the facts. I have all the numbers. People is hustling, doing the thing. All they know the thing going up, but they ain't keeping track of the numbers. But I have to remind everybody about the numbers. No. Fuel surcharge. He said he was going to put a cap on the fuel surcharge.
77.
He said that he was going to he had 2 variations of the cap. A cap at 72 and a cap at 77. Well, with different versions. But the CEO of INLEC wrote properly that there is no cap on the fuel surcharge. There will be a pass-through. That he has been asked, the VINLEC has been asked, to bear some cost for the custom service charge. Why just don't take off those things? Why put it on VINLEC? But I'm coming to that shortly, but I want to deal with where it has moved. The fuel surcharge. And I want you to bear with me. In March billing, the fuel surcharge was 54.9 cents per kilowatt hour, or what the people normally call a unit. Unit of measurement is a kilowatt hour. This is a fuel surcharge. The base charge is separate. $54.9 cents, nearly 55 cents. It went up in April to 66.5 cents. Let me just go to June. It went up in June to 73.8 cents. And in July, it is now 83.2 cents. The all-time high before that, where Friday and Leacock and Cummins and all of them want to bring down fire and brimstone over Alpha Wicked, was in July 2022, when it was 69 cents. It went there and then it came back down. That is because that's the backlash from the Russia-Ukraine war. But we had a clear policy as to how we deal with it. No. And by the way, all that time we had to manage the knock-on effect of COVID. 2020-21, we have to have the knock-on effect of Sofre in 2020. And Beryl didn't even come yet. No. The increase since March 2026 to July 2026 is 28.3 cents per kilowatt hour. just over 23 cents, or nearly 52% increase. Bear these numbers in mind. Therefore, in March 2026, on the basis of using 250 units, 250 units is what the bulk of people in this country use between 200 and 250 units. Use 250 units. Because that is after 250 units, you begin to pay VAT on any extra which you use. So it's a way to encourage people to keep your thing as far as possible, 250 or less. If it go over a little, it's only the increase you'll pay on the VAT, which is so that most people, 80-something% of the people in the country don't pay VAT on electricity. And it is paid on the base charge. But now we are dealing with the price of the fuel surcharge. So in March, if you're consuming 250 units, you would have paid, in addition to your base charge, $137.25 for the 250 units at 54.9 cents, call it 55 cents. You can do the math. In July 2026, the number will jump. If you multiply 250 by 83.2 cents, it would reach $208. That's $70.75 more than what you paid on February the 28th. Again, the increase is 52%, approximately. I want to tie in a few things. Remember, they call me Santa Claus because I used to give so many things away. And they go down social welfare and people say, well, you know, I used to get so and so. They say, no, Santa Claus not in power anymore. They go down in lottery, they say, well, this is what Ralph used to. They say, well, Santa Claus not here anymore. But Grinch, the evil Grinch, is in charge. No. Not the loving, affable Santa Claus. The Grinch, the evil Grinch, one who waging war on the poor. Never mind little smoke and mirrors and camouflage. That's what it is about. Let's check this. They say if you have household income of more than $2,000 a month, not the income of one person in the household, the total household income, don't apply for any assistance. I used to give at least $500,000 a month for assistance to students going secondary school and community college. From Lotto. Primary school used to be dealt with down at mobilization. You hear what I'm telling you? Over $5 million for the 10 months of the school year from Lotto. They want to cut that out. They can't say they ain't going to do it, but they're restricting it. Fewer people will get it. No. Let us say a household has...
Well, the average household is 3 people.
3.4 people. Let we say a household with 4 persons. A man and his woman and 2 children. One going secondary school and one going community college. Sometimes might be 3 children, one going primary school too. But they will use this example, which people will, and people do variations of the example. Minimum wage is $1,000 a month. One of them inside of the household working for more than $1,000 a month. Let us say $1,500 a month. So that household income is $2,500. You to go to work is going to take you between 1/3 and 40% of your money. But they will be generous and say they're squeezing it and they only do 30%. Or even just 1/3, 33 and 1/3. So 2,500, divide that by 3, that's 800 and something dollars. So the persons, though they have a household income of $2,500, they have to spend over $800 to go and go from home to work and come back, including eating food. So you have effectively, your income is $2,500, but you have effectively take away 800 from 2,500. You're $1,700, under $1,700. In that house, you're going to have a fridge. You're going to have a stove. The lady going to want to have a washing machine. You're going to have a TV in the living room. Those, at least 2 of them, you're going to still paint coats, a singer, a OT. Paint somebody. Then, assuming that the students got their laptop or device from ULP government, you have to pay their internet bill. Then you have to pay water. And you have to pay electricity. And the electricity, what they consuming, they will have to pay $70 more than $70 more because of these increases. Thus far. You see why this decision by the lotto, by the government in relation to the lotto is foolishness? What will happen? That family will be able to send just one child. The one at secondary school said the one they finished. The one to community college, they got to tell the boy or the girl, the young man or the young woman, defer your dreams. We can't afford for you to go. That means they're unlikely to end up in university. The country will suffer. That person will suffer, and you'll see the impact quickly. And you'll see it also on a prolonged basis. No. I am giving people the facts. They know what I'm saying. These cases coming to me is every day now. Dozens of them contacting me. Coming up, guys, come look for me. Eh? The people who are walking up there by me, they say, you run in, we know you're a doctor in your name, but you have a surgery. Eh? People, Because the state, the government which is supposed to help is not helping. And they're very selective in where they're helping. The cost of living is rising sharply. There's an affordability crisis in this country. People getting firing, there's political victimization, jobs are not being created, hardship and suffering is across the land. And people are feeling it in the preparation for the school, for college, university. They're getting little help from welfare. There's genuinely a war, a real war against the poor. NDP waging a war against the poor. No. What they're doing, they say Finlec must do a little subsidy, the custom service charge. Finlec does $734,000, they told us last month. This month gone here. But the people are really feeling it. But you're bleeding Finlec. Finlec, that's the government responsibility to do the subsidy. Finlec has an ambitious maintenance program to carry out and capital program. They could borrow money for the capital program, but they have to have something in the kitty to help them when they're borrowing. And they also have to do for recurrent spending, as you say. Maintenance is recurrent. No. When on the northeast, you ain't do the maintenance properly, or the northwest, or in Mespo, or in Villa, or in Vermont, and you have more and more power outages. When they come off, your TV might spoil. You're definitely chicken wing and turkey wing going spoil. Going go rancid. Don't have Finlec do that. You, the government, have to do that. That's why I say you have to figure out the number. But you see, they spook the market. Friday spook the market. You can't get the money borrowed overseas how I used to get it cheaply. Because even after we left $30 million there just to put the signature of 30 million US, the fella sent them and said, no. We're going to lend you 20 million US. That's 54 million EC, rather than having 80. But half of that already you got paid Sal and Rubis. Huh? Those are the facts of life. You say that the debt is not sustainable. You create a problem yourself. You have people putting in areas when you understand about debt swap, which means invariably the people who lend you money taking a loss. Moody's and any rating agency would see that as a technical default. We have never defaulted on any debt. And for the uninitiated, literate but uninitiated people with their bias, lack of self-awareness that they even have a bias, who occasionally coming up from underwater for air, the right says Ralph fault. Please, be properly advised now. For those who are stuffed with malice, who hate Ralph and the ULP, well, them go write anything. And then you have the opportunists, including some who just barely come back home, testing the waters. You know, they want to eat a food or eat a better food. Real problems with these three categories of people. They have problems, and they're trying to mislead people. They mislead you before the election, don't let them mislead you again. Don't let them mislead you again. Let Finlec do its maintenance. Let Vinlec do its normal capital expenditure, and they have an ambitious program. Because, remember, they had to expand on Leeward because we were bringing beaches. We're bringing Marriott. They had to prepare for that, just like CWSA. And while people are bearing the pressure, they spent $135,000. The whole of the cabinet went out there. People call me and ask me if they're doubling the size of the airport, the number they have. When planes land first, there's a tradition where the fire engine would use as a salute. You put water on. I hear they put on water too, I hear they put on water too. But they used to say, oh, Ralph is like never see come see. We here do that for. Well, they're so ignorant, they don't know that that's a usual thing. But you don't do that when you're branding and you're branding in the Caribbean as your ambassador. Oh, Heavenly Father. For thee. No. And amidst all of this pressure, the killing fields continue and ramp up. I'm not making politics out of this. But Friday, every time when he was in opposition, there's one murder. He called a press conference. He said, my fault. They put up billboard. Liquor running off him out. No, neither he nor Friday saying quay. And they have some surrogates, some turncoats and the like. Some opportunists who blaming the Commissioner of Police and blaming Buju. Why they don't talk about how Leacock is interfering in the management of the police force? I'm not talking about setting policy, If you want to be Commissioner of Police, Leacock, go and take the job as Commissioner of Police. But you can't run the office of the Commissioner of Police from the Ministry of National Security, from the office of the Minister of National Security. This government has also been showing its totalitarian instincts, criminalizing whistleblowers. I heard somebody say that, it's only a fine of $1,000. Criminalizing. But I bring this law here. Criminal Code, Section 29. Let me find it. Imprisonment in default of payment of fine. 29(1). In the absence of any express provision in any law relating thereto, the term of imprisonment which may be ordered in default of a payment of a fine is in accordance with this schedule. Exceeding $500, 1 year jail, maximum. So if you don't pay the fine, you could get jail. It's in the general law, Read the Criminal Code. Section 29. The maximum range from 14 days to 1 year, depending on the size of the fine. It's there. And while they're doing that, they're boasting about how they do something for in 8 months, which I couldn't do for 25 years. What they do? They codify what we were doing to give non-pensionable people compassionate gratuity. That ain't change. That ain't change. But they do two things on it, which are wrong and nasty. If you serve 2 years, you could have get your compassionate gratuity. You have to do minimum of 7 years. And no minister had any power to stop you from getting it. Now, they write in that liquor can stop you. That's what they're boasting about. I hope people listen to my address in the House on that. By the way, when we came to office, within months, we pay the workers, who won't pay their severance pay for over 16 years by the NDP. Up at Rabuka all the way down to Walilabu. There was a law which criminalized public servants writing and speaking about things political. I repeal that law, We have a strong record of democracy and defending the poor and the working people. A strong record of good governance. I don't know if anybody has any question. I have a few minutes, 10 minutes, and then for the to get on back down to the court.
Yes. I see a question here. Well, this person is asking about the flag on the airline.
Yes. Well, I just dealt with that.
So, yes.
It's rubbish. It's a gimmick. Nonsensical.
Yep.
Well, that's just to tell you they ain't got nothing to show, So they'll bring gimmicks upon gimmicks. All of them will bring gimmicks.
Suppose someone is asking about citizenship by investment and whether the government intends to move ahead given what is happening.
That's what they say. That's what they say. That's what they say. And on Wednesday, I will deal more with that. On Wednesday. I'll come in on Wednesday on time.
What is the situation recently with graduates, college students in terms of scholarships? Well,
we're still waiting.
Yeah, still waiting on that.
We left a good program and they got in it. Let me tell you, these fellas are so mean. There's a woman who is a graduate, but she decides that she wants to go back to the teacher's college to do her associate degree. The 2-year program now, a young woman. You know what they tell her? You don't get help with a degree. This ain't for you. But it's an undergraduate program. The associate degree is an undergraduate program. She hasn't gone and applied for the graduate program to do the diploma in education at the University of West Indies through the community college, which is a program which we left. I don't know what they're doing with that. Another woman, the period when she's supposed to apply for the continuation for tuition scholarship, she got it for the first year, she got it for the second year. Her mother got sick, then her mother died. She had to make all the arrangements, everything was left to her. So she missed the deadline. You know what they tell her? Well, defer your studies for a year and come back. If you want our help. Because the deadline is the deadline. No consideration at all for people. And yeah, I don't know if they have any more.
In case anyone wants to call 534-7827, that's the WhatsApp number. Someone said, for clarity, PM, can you explain the difference with the legislative changes pertaining to dual citizenship put forward by this government versus what was proposed in 2009?
No, in 2009, what we had said is that we put it to the people, we say, look, because we have a lot of migrants, and you just can't do it for Commonwealth. You can't just extend it to Commonwealth. Do it for other countries. and like, for instance, the USA. Because a lot of instances in the USA, because, look, people have closer relationship with the USA than with Bangladesh, which is a member of the Commonwealth, or with Brunei Darussalam, which is headed by a non-elected monarch, or Zimbabwe, which is a country in central Southern Africa. But the people said, no, we don't want anybody who has any association with any foreign power to be a parliamentary representative. And that's fine with me. The people have spoken on that. And that's why the law remain. And that's the position. I would have liked to stay on more, but I had to go. I have other responsibilities. Please, I'm sorry I could have only give you 1 hour of my time today, but I hope you would say that it's better than nothing.
Yep.
And that, again, I want to thank Fordy and Bling. And I have to go. I have to get back.
And you said you'll be out of state.
I'll be out of state from the 29th, from Wednesday, but I will come here and leave here and go straight to the airport.
All right, so you for that.
All right.
You'll get your program on Wednesday. All right, thank you.
And we make arrangements for the days when I'm away.
Yes,
Fordy.
yes. Thank you, Dr.
God bless.
Gonzalez. All right.
Love you.
Okay.